Well, welcome everybody. It is 9:02. We do have kind of an agenda and I'm excited, but we will, welcome. It's good to see everybody's face. Kobe, I got your question and we're not dodging it. We will absolutely dive into some questions maybe at the end. And but one of the things I do want to say is that we do plan on doing this throughout the summer. Maybe we'll do a check-in in late June or July. And I will ask Elaine to join us for that, right? And maybe we could address some of those questions, funding questions, and the question you asked, Kobe. I don't know the answer to it. I think it's worth a discussion. We work in other states, and one of the things that we are constantly talking about in other states is how do you make sure the rigor of that work is never diminished, right? Because you are accelerating learning and you're trying to give college credit. And so how do you make sure? Kobe had a question about credits and how the credits are being recognized at the state. And we'll get to that kind of maybe right before our break. We'll take some questions like that, Kobe, but it was a good question and one we should definitely visit, okay? But I think everybody's here. Yeah, go ahead. To have a quick question. I think everybody's here. If we don't care, let's do introductions. And just real quick, my name is Joseph Goins. You guys know me. It has been a weird, busy year, right? I think everybody's been scrambling. And so, but it's excited to pull this meeting together. Kelly and I put together we wanted this session to be more of a working session. And so we're going to do some breakout groups and really have people think about some of these topics critically and share. And so we've put together kind of an agenda, but we've built time to have a discussion about open items, next steps, funding, things like that. And so we'll get to that, but excited to be here. We have submitted the technical assistance paperwork to continue the work in July. And one of the things we want to do is we really want to get back to, if it is face-to-face, we will absolutely do some face-to-face convenings. And the goal would be to at least do 3 or 4 to where we do them face-to-face in actual, I know Dr. Hunter, we had scheduled one at your place, right? And we'd like to do that again. And we are going to have a pretty big group of new principals. I know of at least 3 principals that have left the early college, and we're going to have to figure out who their replacements are, get them back into the fold, right? And so, but excited to be here. And Kelly, why don't you go next, and then we'll just go around robin real quick.
Sure. I'm Kelly Kennedy. I've been working with Joseph since 2019, end of the year 2019. My title is Research and Digital Content Specialist, but I do quite a few things other than that. I work primarily with early college high schools around the country, and I also work with New Mexico's counselors.
Steve, I'm going to go by the people that are on my screen in order. Steve, you're on my screen next.
Sure, Joseph. Steve Aguirre, Executive Director of the High Plains REC, located in Raton. I haven't been on this a whole lot, so I thought I'd join today, but we're kind of the fiscal agent for the project. So we kind of contract with Joseph to make sure that this work gets done. So nice meeting you all.
Dr. Hunter, you're next.
Sure. So yes, good morning. I'm Dr. Robert Hunter, and I am the director at the Middle College High School on the campus of UNM Gallup. And so we're pretty well established early college high school. We've been here since 2002. Later on, you're going to get to one of our sidekicks that we just hired on for a student success advisor. So I'll let her introduce herself when we get to her.
Hey, thanks, Dr. Hunter. Gabby, you're next, and I'm just going by who's on my screen.
Hi, good morning. I'm Gabby Alanis. I'm the principal of Arrowhead Park Early College High School and Arrowhead Park Medical Academy in Las Cruces. So technically on paper, we are 2 early colleges, but we really function as a single entity. And this is just finished my 3rd year as principal. It's been a rocky wave since I started, but that's okay, right? That's education in general.
Right. You got a good 18-month experience, right?
He hit the ground running and never stopped. Hi, Gabby.
Hi, Rick.
Gabby, I talked to Ricky Williams yesterday, and we were talking about his experience in Arrowhead. So it was a good time. So Richard, you're next on my screen.
Yes, Richard Eisenbard from principal at Early College High School in Grant Cibola County Schools. And we have just finished only our second year of operation. So we're kind of maybe a little bit new to the block, but we had a very successful, I would say, spring semester. We learned some lessons from the fall. So we're doing well, but we're starting our third year next year.
Hey, Rick, you're up.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I know a lot of faces here. I've met with a lot of you and worked with a lot of you. Obviously, my name is Rick Schmidt. I'm with the PED, College and Career Readiness Bureau, and been here since, 2015, 2014, somewhere around there. I've come out and visited some of you in one of my roles, which is the Office of Civil Rights, Methods of Administration Coordinator. We just call it OCR. But I come out and offer technical assistance. We do reviews and check and make sure everything is, you're following compliance. And then we offer the technical assistance to help you get into compliance and work with you throughout the entire process and beyond. So, and one of my other roles here as well is the Perkins, actually CTE grant coach for the northern central New Mexico area, but also across the state. Two of my clusters for the state, the priority clusters, are LPSCS, which is Law Protective Services, Security, and Corrections. I hope I got all those in the right order, LPSCS. And then I also do TDL, which is Transportation, Distribution, and Logistics cluster as well. So under those two umbrellas, there's a whole lot of stuff we do in this state. And it's a ball. There's never a boring moment, ever, ever, ever. And when I first started, I used to say, oh, don't worry, I'll get to that when there's a downtime. There hasn't been a downtime in 6 years. So it's just always going. Something's always happening. I love working with you folks. You're amazing out there. And you're the reason why I wake up in the morning, even though I got to deal with all the political stuff. But I love working with you guys. It's just a blast. And yeah, Robert, welcome. Love the hair. I'm trying to work towards that. I got my hat on to put it back. No more flat top. I used to wear a flat top for many, 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 many years. So welcome. Looking forward to working with you all today. And Doc, I'm kind of double, triple parts. I'm going to be bouncing in and out.
That's
so I just wanted to let you know I'm not trying to be rude.
okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Obviously, if you're doing transportation, you're on the move a lot.
I
We picked some pathways to focus on, and we did not pick one of yours, but we can always switch. But glad you're here, Rick. And for those that did not catch that, Rick said he was the CTE grant coach and deals with Perkins, so he might have money. So you might want to post, if you need money, Rick, post your phone number and your email, and somebody can call.
Right. Not just me, but there's another one of my partners on. You'll get to her in a second. So those of you
Veronica,
who know me,
we already know, Rick. Veronica has all the money, and she's
I know, right?
to show herself. All right, Liliana, you're next.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Liliana de la Garza. I am the principal at Alta Vista Early College High School in Gaston School District, and I've been with Alta Vista Early College since 2016.
Great. You always have been to all of our meetings. You're one of my most consistent participants.
Thank you.
All right, Maria.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Maria Legarreta. I am the assistant principal at Alta Vista Early College High School. How are you today?
Great. Thanks for joining us. Hannah?
Hi, my name's Hannah. I work with Middle College High School here at Gallup, New Mexico. I just started in April, so I'm the student success advisor. Basically, I'm training to be the counselor when Mr. Knowles retires. I am an alumni of Middle College. I graduated from here in 2016.
Hey, okay, so you should be running this, Hannah. We'll just turn it over to you. You have all the experience all the way through, right?
Yeah.
Okay, Kobe, I see you've moved.
Good
Kobe?
morning, everyone. Yes, I'm actually on a little mini vacation in Santa Fe. And so I was outside, and between the birds and the traffic, I had to move back inside. But there's actually 2 Zoom meetings going on by 2 of the participants in this house. So we're at opposite corners. Anyway, my name is Kobe Sinescu. I am the dual credit coordinator and liaison at Taos Academy. And we work with UNM Taos dual credit program. And I am retiring in moments. So I wanted to, Rick, I wanted to say I love your background, the mountains and the lake. Anyway, so I will be passing the torch on to Kelsey Pike. And she couldn't join us this morning, but I will also still have my big toe in this program because I've been a part of it since James Gilroy at UNM Taos got all of the high schools in the Taos County together and said, let's do dual credit, so we went through all the steps to get the early college high school certification, which I was really proud for. And Joseph has been such a big help for all of this. And it's really great to see you guys. Unfortunately, Tuesday morning was the one day during this whole last year of 2020 when I had a conflict with my seniors. I was seeing my seniors. The only time we had a meeting was Tuesday and Thursday morning. So when Joseph said, "Oh, we're meeting Tuesday at 9," I was thought, sorry,
That's not gonna work.
I can't make it. That's the only time I meet with my seniors. So anyway, summer, I'm here. I've been looking forward to this. So anyway, it's just great to see all you guys and meet all you guys. And I am just, and anybody have any questions or just, I've been in the trenches for a long time with 2 different schools. So please, reach out to me. I can help in any way as far as answering questions or what we're doing at Taos Academy. And we have a great partnership with UNM Taos, and we've really, I feel, grown an excellent program. So I will take a little bragging because I'm retiring. I can do that. So anyway,
That's
thank you.
awesome.
Thank you, Joseph.
You can run, Kobe, but you can't hide. We all know you. We know where you're at. So
When she said moments, her camera's gone.
oh, yeah, she's like within moments. Yeah.
Moments, boom, done.
Taos Academy is one of my schools up there, and we're going to miss you, Kobe. Yeah, you're a great asset. But like I said, you can run, but you can't hide. We all have your cell number.
Yeah, and there's a couple of schools when we were doing the convenings that we always wanted to go to. Taos was one, Dr. Hunter was one. And, I really want, and we're going to have a lot of new people next year. And I think we really want to try to find a location pretty early on in the year and do a really good meeting where we're in person and can dive in. And I'll say this before we get to our last 2 people. Early college, high school, one of the things, if you guys pay attention to the national news, I mean, when they came out with the final recommendations on how you should spend all of this money, they only listed like 4 programs by name, and early college was a program listed by name, right? In how to spend all of the money, right? From the COVID money, they said states should consider early college, high school models, right? So the program has just taken off. I can tell stories. We were on a presentation to North Carolina on Tuesday, Massachusetts. Texas thinks they're going to have 800 early college programs next year across the state of Texas. And so it's definitely a model that I think, because of the success in targeting underrepresented students and the outcomes, it's just got a lot of movement right now. Positive, very positive. Tim, you're on here, and Hannah's waiting on you to retire, but do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay.
There you are, Tim.
Yeah, I feel like it's like one of those high school reunions kind of thing, because I mean, there's so many people I recognize their names and I haven't seen them. Obviously, haven't seen them in person or you know, rarely on a Zoom meeting in the last year. So it's good to see a lot of familiar faces. Yeah, I'm the counselor and service learning instructor for the Middle College High School, and this is my I'm finishing up my 5th year, and I did 25 at Gallup High School as a counselor and a special ed teacher. So anyway, look, I'm very much looking forward going back to face-to-face, and it's just, I don't know, it's just been a challenge. So
Yeah.
Dr.
Right.
Goins, I also recognize Tim and Kobe from my work with counselors. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, we did. I think we invited a bunch of guys, but on the school counselor convening we did in February, I think we had 436 people there. So if you participated in one of those sessions that day, that was a big day. So thanks, Tim, and glad you're here. And Hannah's definitely glad you're here too. Seth, you joined us. We're just doing quick announcements and introduction, Seth. Glad you're here, bud.
Yeah, good to see everybody. I apologize for being late. I was they took a little while to load the rock in the back of the truck, and so I had to get it out of the back of the truck bed, so I was hustling. Seth Martinez, principal, San Juan College High School here in Farmington. Just kind of following up with the end of the school year. We made it through graduation, which was a huge achievement for us because, you know, the plans changed, seems like 100 times over up until graduation. And we're just, we're kind of on to planning for next school year. I know a toolkit, it looks like, according to the news, came out recently. So we're anticipating some of the, hopefully less restrictions, and planning a new schedule for next year that'll encompass 5 periods during the school day. And we were, you know, had 2 additional staff for San Juan College High School. So that's exciting. We even have an interventionist position. So, you know, we can offer some credit recovery and maintain our student enrollment. So we're excited to get going.
Okay, thanks, Seth. Glad you're here. And Seth has got some exciting stuff. So once we get into the breakouts, I'm excited for everybody to share. Veronica, do you want to come off camera? Sounds like you're at a bowling tournament. Hey, Veronica.
Sorry. Yes, I am. And I apologize. This was a last minute thing. We didn't think there were going to be a state bowling tournament, but lo and behold, there is. And let me tell you, my son is a star bowler. So we're hoping for the best, and we would love to see him get a scholarship here. So I will be listening in, but just so you know, I'll stay off camera.
Okay.
Well, no apologies needed.
Thank you.
If it gets into the championship while we're still on here, turn the camera on. We'll see.
Right. Turn it around. Let's watch that.
Let's see.
We'll see his final pin roll.
You got your background on. Don't worry about it.
Oh gosh, I can't control that from here. I'm sorry.
No, it's cool.
Okay, welcome everybody. And as I said, this has been a weird year, and I think everybody can acknowledge that. And much like what Tim said, I'm ready to be back face to face. But what we thought we would do today is we wanted to go through, and we put together kind of some problems of practice. And the idea was to allow us to spend some time just talking about some of the work and maybe sharing with each other. I always say, and I know I'm a broken record on this, that students learn best peer-to-peer, and I think adults do as well. And we have a tendency to do the opposite when it comes to adult learning. People go, they set and get, and somebody tells them what to do and they leave, right? And we want to switch it, and we want people to be talking to each other about what they do, like Seth and his practices, And so I'm going to pull up the agenda and share my screen. Let me see. Kelly, are we seeing that okay?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so what we thought we would do, and let me go through this. So the agenda, we took 4 of the main principles. So to go back to an early college, we've got equitable access and student support. And one of the things we know about this work, as you think about it, these are all interwoven. Like, it's really hard to say we're gonna really focus on underrepresented students without thinking about what type of support do I need to make sure they're successful, right? So what we wanted to do is take 4 of the 5. We took equitable access, robust student support, and we got a problem of practice here in a minute we're going to look at. And then we'll do a break. And after break, we're going to come back and we want to focus on academic pathways and connection to careers, right? What we want to do is kind of connect these big ideas. So if you think, again, equitable access and student support, really they all go together. Like, it's hard to talk about, like, we're going to pick a career pathway without thinking about what type of support's needed. But we really thought it'd be best to bundle that. The only one we kind of left off was the 5th one, which is high quality partnerships, and that's your higher ed partner. And what we thought is, since that one is more about just that we have an established partnership, we'd focus on the 4 ones that dive into the work of the actual school, right? And what you're doing every day. Not that we're leaving off the 5th one, high quality partnership, right? Because that's super important with who you're higher ed. And one question I'll ask, and people can just respond in the chat, because I'd be curious to see what everybody else thinks. Kelly and I do this in other states. And at some point, do we want to pull in your higher ed partners next year to some of these opportunities, right? To where they're setting at these opportunities with us. And so I think that's a good idea, post it, but we do this in other states. And I know one other state, they require the K-12 and higher ed to come to the meetings together. That's in one of our other states we work in. So it is interesting, but we left that one off, not because we're not focused on it, but just we really wanted to think about the work that you're doing right now. So that's the agenda. And then at the end, we've got a discussion and some things we want to talk about that impact once we get to July. As Seth said, you know, we're all hoping we go back face to face or some kind of normal life, right? So we do live I live in a state of Tennessee, so we've been normal, or at least going back, I don't know, since February. So it has been nice to be back. So we've done introduction. So we're going to start, before we get into kind of the sessions, if you will, let's review what the criteria and the designation says about equitable access. And since I'm talking too much, I'm going to see if somebody wants to unmute themselves and help me read the definition of equitable access. Somebody volunteer and unmute themselves so it's not just me talking today.
I will do that, Joseph. I
Yay,
figured if I go
Gabby.
first, I don't have to go later, right?
Maybe, we'll see.
The demographic composition of your ECHS population should mirror that of your district while adhering to and reflecting the core vision of the ECHS model. That is to engage students underrepresented in higher education, low-income students, and first-generation college goers. Thus, the student admissions process must be intentional.
Right. And one of the biggest words I use in working with programs like this is the intentionality, right? It's, are we removing barriers to access? So when you think about equity, it's like, are we removing barriers first so that they have easy access to the program, right? And are you identifying those barriers, right? What are those barriers? For example, we've worked with schools that have an assessment test. That would be a barrier, right? If the goal is to get enrollment, right, but you're setting a criteria to get in, then that's a barrier to access, right? So how do we look at that And that's why it pulls in the second criteria, which is student support. So if we remove the barriers, right, and we are intentional about targeting this population, right, then we go to robust student support. So we need a volunteer. We know Gabby is already gone that wants to volunteer to read it. I'm making you guys work today. All right, I see faces. I'm gonna call on somebody if somebody doesn't volunteer.
I'll do it, Joseph.
Yay!
Yay! Robust student support with exposure to integrated high school and college academics in early college high school programs. Students are facing an academic environment with which they are not familiar. Thus, a wraparound interwoven system of student support services is a requirement in your early college high school if students are not to be successful. Academic and non-academic supports are integral to student success.
Perfect. So you can think about these, when you think about these two, obviously we're targeting a population, but then how do we ensure that once they get here, they're successful? And again, I talked about this at the beginning. There really is a pretty big national movement that's focused on early college programs. And I think it is one of the rare programs that has shown positive results for a specific underrepresented population, right? And I do believe it's the student support, which is probably one of the key elements, right? When they get here, what are we doing? I know we talked to several people has already talked about, Seth, you talked about hiring a new person. Hannah is working in that counselor role. So some of these are really super important when you think about it, because it's what are we doing to support them when they get there, right? And how do we ensure their success, right? So what we want to do now, is we want to spend some time, and there's not a big group, so we're just going to have 2 breakouts today, right? But I do want to break us up into some smaller groups here in a second. And what we want to do is and I kind of created a fake scenario, but it's probably real, right? We could insert lots of different names here, right? But what we want to do is we want to take the first part, which is really centered around recruitment. And how are you targeting intentionality in this population, right? When I first started working in New Mexico, and I will leave names out, I went and visited a couple of schools, and I remember I sat down with people at PD, and there was one school in particular. I said, "Hey, that's a gifted and talented program." There's nothing. It's a great gifted and talented program, and that's good work if that's what you want to do. It is not an early college high school. An early college high school is intentionally focused on those students, right? And then providing the services. So here's our scenario we're going to think about first, right? Your early college high school has very few Hispanic males enrolled. Although the program is open to all students who are interested, data shows that the majority of Hispanic students that are enrolled are female. Right. And again, we could pick any scenario here, but what we really wanted to do is create a scenario to where we think we have a population we're not targeting. Right. And by the way, this is true. If you know the data on college graduation right now, it's about 60% female, almost a double on male. So actually, this is kind of a real problem nationwide, by the way. So our task is, what recruitment and outreach strategies might you use to encourage Hispanic males to enroll your program? So what I want you guys to do, and you can branch out a little bit, but when we break up, I'm going to try to split us up into 2 rooms, just 15 minutes, and share either some of your recruitment or how you would tackle this. And one of the things we probably need to do next year, I want to come back and really spend some time looking at the data, right? How do we pull the data in our processes as we go through this, right? Up front to where we really are targeting that. So, and we have some tools we're going to show at the end. A self-assessment tool. We have an equity tool we're going to share that allows you to help do that. So we're going to break it up, just 2 groups. I want you to take this task. Kelly, I think you've posted a link. So if you want to click on that link, That'll give you the actual statement. So if you want to have it on your screen as you guys break up, let me break up my rooms here real quick. Any questions though before we do this? Just spend 15 minutes. Share what you guys are doing. Again, your scenario is we want to focus on the data. You don't have enough Hispanic males. What are your strategies to recruit a population that is underrepresented? Okay. Talk about how you would approach the problem, any strategies, and we are going to come back. I'm going to create these rooms.
Hey, Joseph, would you pop that back up so I can do a snippet real quick, please?
Yeah, the chat. If you go to the chat,
Oh,
Rick,
you put it in.
we posted a link to the document. So
Sorry about that. I was on
make
a
sure
phone.
everybody, at least one person in your group has that, right?
Got it. I got it now. Thank you.
So, and I'm trying to make sure I've got my rooms. Okay, so I'm going to open up rooms. Any questions? I'm going to set the clock for 15 minutes. Share. Somebody has to talk when you come back. So Gabby's trying not to volunteer. I can see it on her face. Seth wants to volunteer, Dr. Hunter. So this is the first part of the scenario, okay? All right, I'm going to open up rooms and I'm going to set a timer for 15 minutes, okay? Hey, everyone. I took it as a good sign that nobody came back early, right?
You cut us off right midstream. Sorry, Mr.
Sorry.
Moore.
I actually gave you an extra minute or two, but I figured Hannah was solving all of her problems. And so I'm excited to hear from the group. So the first part was to think about it and whether or not this was a real scenario. We encountered these. And so I've got my groups here in group 1, which we had Tim, Rick, Richard, Maria, Liliana, Hannah, and Gabby. So I don't know who our spokesperson is, but talk about your discussion. Hopefully it was good and robust, but please share. I'm curious. Gabby, you don't want to go first?
I was going to say nobody's going to volunteer, so I'll go ahead. And I am going to talk about Hannah first because I think she had this, I mean, she brought up like what they did and how it really worked. And it was really going out into the community where they needed to find. She talked about that, you know, as a graduate, like she said, there was hardly any Native students within their school. And now they're like at 70%. And it took them going to the community where they would find, you know, the Native students. They went to, I believe you said it was chapter meetings, right, Hannah? And that's where, you know, they could speak with the elders and explain what it is that they were looking for and what they could offer to their students. And that was huge, is reaching out to the community. And I definitely wrote notes about that, Hannah, is like find our community and what we want, right? And go to them. And so Hannah talked about that. I talked about, you know, we talked about different things. We go to every 8th grade classroom. Our counselor does, to talk, you know, about our programs and what we have to offer. We talked about having parent nights, advertising, you know, not only social media, but also in print, like in several different forms, open houses, really talking about the benefits of your school. You know, some students not only want the experience there, but a smaller environment might be better for some students, and they may excel, you know, in a smaller environment. And then I think it was yes, it was Tim who talked about, and I wrote this down too, Tim, because, you know, we used to do college visits, like, even though we're right here, we used to specifically do that, take the kids to the college, and we haven't done that in a few years, even before pandemic, right? We do it sometimes in the summer, but not in depth. And Tim talked about taking a group of students, like behavioral students that were in a class, and people thought they were crazy for taking those kids, but how it really opened their eyes. So really trying to show students, you know, the benefits and that this can be their reality also.
Yeah, and I think two things you said there that are really important that I want to echo that I had not thought about. And that was the open house and the school visit. One of the things I'll say, my dissertation, for those that don't know, was on how and why parents leave the public schools. And when we got to, I surveyed 6,000 parents that had left the public schools. And when I got to, how do you make that decision? Are you on the internet? What are you looking at, right? Number one in 6,000 survey, and by the way, it was not even close, was a school visit. That they drive and they have an experience. And when that experience is positive, they think positive. And it has nothing to do with data, right? They're parents. They don't actually know like learning theory, right? But they have this experience. And, you know, and I always said, and by the way, the 4 buckets were academic, moral, proximity, and safety, right? Those are like the 4 big buckets in choice, right, for a parent. But when I got to how, it was really that school visit, Gabby. And like, it wasn't even close. Like, grades weren't even there, right? I was like, wow, that's crazy, right? And they talked about, and you know, I actually got a chance to do the qualitative part. I interviewed 72 parents. So when I interviewed them, I said, okay, tell me about your experience. And without a doubt, this was their experience. They would go in, and the front desk was mean. And this is what they would tell me. They were mean. They couldn't talk to the principal. They were busy. Nobody would show them the classroom, and they left, right? They would go visit another school, whether it was a private school or a school of choice. They met them at the door. And they were like, hey, we're glad you're here. Would you like to see the experience your kid's going to have? And it was totally different, right? And I was like, wow, like, how do you start to think like that? But I love Hannah's idea of the community and getting to where those students are, right? And I think that intentionality of saying, we're going to go find where these people are at and make sure they feel welcomed, right? And I think it's a hard job, right? But I think you've got to get there, right? I remember talking to a principal once, and he said, well, we're a school of choice. We just take whoever chooses to come here. Like, no. We've got to be intentional in targeting that population, right? It's not enough to say we're just a school of choice. We take whoever comes here. And I think Hannah is really right on that, Hannah. So, okay, group 2. I can read who's in group 2. Rob, I know Dr. Hunter, you're in there. Seth, you were in there. Veronica may or may not have been in there. We don't know how the bowling was going.
If you're cool, I can kick it off real quickly.
Sure.
Yeah, so, well, I'm glad that Hannah saw that, because, yeah, we do look very demographically different from what we looked like when she was a student here. And so it's good she recognizes. What I would say, too, is, you know, just the struggle of New Mexico, oddly, being a minority majority state, but also not being an affirmative action state. It means that all your efforts have got to go into the recruitment part. And so in addition to what Hannah mentioned, we've been really strategic in our advertising. So we've done things like, you know, made sure that the ads go into the Navajo Times, make sure that the ads that are going into the Gallup Independent feature photographs of the students who we want, you know? So like we will make sure that we've got Native students represented in those ads, even on the radio. And the radio is actually cheaper than print media, you know? You can get people with those voices who can speak about it, and you can get parents to talk about, you know, the highlights of the school, and they're in your ad. One thing I didn't mention, and I didn't want to forget, I've even gone so far as talking to a couple of reporters from the Navajo Times or the Gallup Independent and saying, listen, can you come out and do a story on one of our students? And you can guess what type of student I'm selecting, right? And I make sure to tell the student, hey, when you do the interview, can you make sure to tell them where you're from? So I've got articles where, you know, the student will say, hey, I'm from Tohatchee, you know, on the reservation, and, you know, I came to middle college, I took a chance on that, and here's what I'm doing now. So even that kind of thing, having a relationship with your local reporters and telling them what you're trying to accomplish and making sure that the person they come out to interview, for whatever particular reason, you can always find something, some kind of success story with a student. And you kind of coach that student ahead of time. So we do things like that.
Yeah, and I'm going to share one story that is very relevant to what you just said. We did a video to where we've been doing what we call share your story. Seth's been a part of it. And we've been mapping those stories, and we hope to have about, right now we're at 70. And so what we've done, Dr. Hunter, is we've gone and found people that do certain careers, and we're interviewing them, and then we're going to record them and let them talk and let the students listen to them. But I'm going to give you an example of one. We have one that we profiled, a female African-American electrician, right? And I got a phone call from a teacher, and the teacher said to me, when the student watched the video, she raised her hand in the class. Now, this is in the year 2021, and said, wow, I didn't know I could do that job, right? And this is a female, because she saw another female in that role. She said out loud in a classroom, wow, I did not know I could do that job, which is amazing, right? And so sometimes it's really, how do we profile that? I love that model, Dr. Hunter. It's really good. If I can see it, I can be it, right? And so sometimes we did one, there was a lady named Margaret that we interviewed that is a first-time immigrant. And she talked about coming here, and the school system wanted her to go into hospitality. And again, it's a very traditional role. And her job now is she's the director of the missile systems for White Sands. And I was like, man, people need to hear that story, right? This is an immigrant. And they were trying to track her into a role. And she now is the director of White Sands missile systems, right? And like, I love her story. I'm like, wow, how do I get every kid to listen to this 3-minute story, right? From Margaret Campos. She's down in Las Cruces, so those that are in Arrowhead, Gabby might know her. Okay, that's great. Anybody else from group 2? I love that, Dr. Hunter. I think that's great. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna share my screen again. Kelly, you might have to post it in the chat again. So what we want to do is we spent 15 minutes looking at it. I want to spend quick 15 minutes. We've done the recruitment now. Now I want everybody to think about, how do we support these students, right? So our problem is our recruitment and our outreach strategies have brought a significant number of students into our program. So they might have gaps in their academic profile. So how do we do the wraparound services for these students, right? And so what I want to do is think about, we've got a targeted population. And, you know, I was on a phone call with Linda Darling Hammonds from Stanford, and she was talking about the worst thing we can do is be deficit driven versus asset driven. So when you think about these wraparound services, how are we also doing it from an asset perspective, right? So how are we doing the wraparound services if we've got these huge gaps of not saying, hey, you have this huge gap, right? But so I want to open up the breakup rooms, and we'll do the same thing, but I want you guys to think critically about, we've targeted a population. Now, what are our wraparound services? And by the way, we're going to hear the word a lot, and we've already heard it from 4 different people, but intentionality, right? What are we doing to do this, right? To ensure these students are successful. So I'm going to open up the rooms. Please share your stories. I think this is the opportunity to really, I've already taken away quite a bit, and we're recording this. So Kelly and I are going to synthesize this and get it out to everybody, but I'm going to open up the rooms for exactly 15 minutes, and here we go. Okay. All right, everybody came back. Hey, this is good. Everybody did the work. Hey, Veronica, we do have to ask you, how is the bowling tournament going? She may not be able to.
I can hear you. He's doing great.
Okay, good. You got to keep us posted. I want to know if we win a championship while we're on the phone. Better yet, you win a scholarship, right?
That's what we're hoping for. This is his senior year, so we're hoping for a scholarship.
I had no clue you could get a scholarship to do bowling in college, but that's awesome. I just found out you can get a scholarship to fish. Did you guys know that? There are fishing scholarships. Like, I missed my calling. Why was that not there when I was 18? I want to know. Okay, group one. So again, we were really thinking, again, these go hand in hand. That's why we wanted to make the scenario. Like, we've got this recruitment. Now we want to do our intentional wraparound services to address barriers. Gabby, I know you volunteered, so we'll see if somebody else will volunteer in group two or group one besides Gabby. Group one, you guys know who you are with Gabby. Somebody's got to volunteer. I can be that teacher that just waits. Right? You guys remember when you were in a classroom and you just waited out your kids? All right.
Hey, I just want to, since I am in a classroom right now, one of my 8th graders is like, Mr. Collum, are meetings always that boring?
Okay.
I'm like, yes, they are.
Okay, so
I'll talk. That's fine.
Okay, go ahead, Gabby.
A little bit about what we talked about. Well, we really did talk about like what we were trying to do to help the students. I know you gave us the question, Joseph.
It's okay. Go ahead.
To really about our struggling students and online learning and how we're trying to remedy, our students that just didn't have a good year. And, in speaking to kind of, the scenario, we did talk about having a good relationship with our partners, right? With our college partners. And although some of that can be good, right? We can try to get that data from them and how to support the students and how they're doing in their classes. That's not always a reality. And some of those, some of our advisors are great and they work really hard to make sure that we know how our students are doing. And then on the flip side, some of the instructors at the college want nothing to do with us. Now that was my statement right there. Nobody said it like that, but I've dealt with that before. Some of those instructors, one even told me, I'll talk to you, but I don't talk to parents. This is why I teach college. That's what she told me.
Well, and I think that's a really good question, Gabby, though. Like, how do we check on students might not even know they're failing in a college class until the end, right? It's not like high school, right?
No, and again, I think each college, right, does something a little different. I know with DACC, with Donyana, they do a midterm grade. And again, we have a grade advisor right now. Unfortunately, not housed here, but housed at the college. And she'll send us those midterm reports. They do an early warning system where, and again, not every instructor has to do this, but so for instance, at summer school, we've already gotten a few early warning messages and the advisor will forward those. Like those don't come to us. They go to the advisor and then she'll send them over to us, but not every instructor has to do that. So that's part of it. And then we talked about, how do we support them here on our campuses and what are we doing? And I've been fortunate, Seth, I'm gonna probably pick your brain. I've just been given an FTE and I went and I said, getting them here. So we're trying to get the kids here that need to be here, but I need help in supporting them. Like we need some sort of intervention program. And so I'm going to be able to hire a person, and not necessarily I'm going to call it interventionist, but that's really what their job is going to be, is to support the students, those that really need it.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of data right now as far as testing data, but our district started with the STAR test. I don't know if that was just our district or if that was statewide, but the STAR exam. And so we're going to start with that and figure out what students need the most academic support, but then we also need to support students. It's not just always academics, it's just how to be successful, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that I'll interject, if I could, about the access to data question is one thing that we've done and pushed more lately than initially is we understand that the university doesn't supply data directly to parents, because of their policies and stuff. But what we've been pushing, in which the university supports and accepts, is there's a FERPA form that the students can fill out, and that will give the rights to the parents to access data directly. They won't do it without the FERPA form, but students that are, challenged in any way, we kind of take the initiative and promote that FERPA agreement so data parents can get more direct access.
Okay, that's a good idea. And we'll go ahead and go to group 2. Feel free, any of the groups, go ahead and share. Go ahead, Dr. Hunter.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on that because, so it's interesting. We actually try not to tell our students and parents about the FERPA form because it tends to upset the faculty. They don't want to talk to parents. So, and I understand that they have to if there's a FERPA. What we have done instead is we fill out a FERPA form for every single one of our students, and we put it in the enrollment packet each year, and the parent will sign it. But what it does is it is allowing the faculty to talk with us, with the counseling or administration department, because the faculty has said when they have their faculty assembly meetings, well, we're okay to talk with you guys. We don't want to talk with parents, and we're like, okay. So we'll fill these out, and then, but we're hoping then that you'll let us know if there's an issue you're having with the student, or if we contact you, know that we've got this on file, and this is sort of a way to buffer the parents from coming at you, and they've been okay with that. Whereas they made it clear they didn't want to talk to parents, and they would appreciate that we didn't advise them to fill out FERPA forms. I mean, that's just another approach to it, I guess.
Okay, it's very interesting that they don't want to talk to parents.
Robert, I would love to get a copy of that form and add that, because we've talked about that for years. But Robert, if maybe I could give you my email, if you could forward me that form, would that be possible?
Yep. Robert, if you don't mind sending it to us, we'll share it with everybody.
Yeah, let me just send it to Dr. Goins so he can share it out to everyone.
Yeah, we'll share it, Kobe. That's great. Yeah, and I'll ask this question as a follow-up question. Are students good about sharing if they're having trouble, right? Do students share? Are they willing or are they not, right? I see a lot of no's. Middle, Kobe? Okay, because I was wondering, and Ann has retired, but one of the things I did like that Ann did at the master's program, they do a seminar class, and part of that seminar class is to try to get the students to open up about their experiences and their challenges, right? So that they're trying to get them to be more communicative in their process, and they require seminar class, right? And it's like once a week, regardless of what you're doing, you come to this class and you share, right? Now, I don't know if the willingness, but I did like that idea of trying to at least force them to tell you if they're having issues. Okay, anybody else on this?
Did you go to group 2 yet?
Group 2. Kobe, you were in there. Kelly, you were in there. Dr. Hunter, you were in there. Seth, you were in there.
I'll go ahead and present. So we had a great group and great ideas, very specific, which was wonderful. I love that Kelly said that our group came up with proactive things that we can do to prevent. We're talking about struggling students, but we also talked about all students, because really for high school students in college, a lot of them are having struggles. So, you know, Brent brought up the orientation for dual credit. The kids need to know what's a syllabus, the calendar for the university, what are the deadlines, what, you know, what they need to do, their textbook, studying skills, things like that. Robert brought up bringing alumni back to return to talk about dual credit. I love that idea. We need a dedicated dual credit advisor, and we didn't even really have one at Taos Academy except for sort of me. But I know that a lot of colleges do have dedicated dual credit advisors, and then a dedicated individual at the higher ed level to handle the dual credit. We do have that. It's beautiful. There's 2 people now at UNM. They've expanded that program. So I might have to apply to be a dedicated
Oops, Kobe, I lost you. Anybody else lose Kobe?
Yes, I cannot hear her either. I thought it was just our internet here at Fresno.
We're losing you. Audio
we have it
wise.
at
There you
UNM
go.
at the college level. We have tutoring. They offer tutoring every single day at noon. It's lunch. It's called Lunchtime Lab, and it's providing support. The kids, many kids won't speak up if they're struggling or they're having a problem. So, you know, that is a challenge that we all face. But anyway, I think that's, if anybody else has other people that they are, excuse me, other things that they want to talk about that we went over. That
And one of the things I'll
seems
say,
like, I love the seminar class where you talk about college, dual credit. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say.
Lastly, just one more thing. Let me finish. Is kids with an IEP. So we encourage our kids to go to UNM on their own if they feel comfortable doing that, and submitting their IEP to the Student Services Higher Ed office. So that way, if they do need services with their classes, they have that option of receiving extended time or retakes or, you know, small group testing. And then if they need support, one of us from the high school will go with them and support them, but make sure that IEP is submitted at the dual credit level. And then of course, when they graduate, they get a 504. And then that, you know, that of course we're encourage them to take that to their new colleges that they're attending. So anyway.
Okay. Anybody else want to add anything from group 2? Seth, you want to add anything? Anybody else in that group?
No, I just and I sent Gabby a message too, because I'm interested to hear. You know, we're also starting in terms of wraparound services, but kind of an interventionist position at San Juan College High School. But like she said, we're not calling it that. Kind of seems to have a negative connotation for an early college high school model. You know, it's a matter of creating. I think our goal is to just create several layers of support, so that if a student for some reason decides to transition back to a zoned high school for any reason, we know we've gone, you know, through the gamut of support in order to maintain that student and make them successful with us. And kind of, you know, the view would be that it was a loss if a student went back to their home zoned high school and wasn't successful with you. We want to maintain that enrollment, but to do so, we have to have several of those layers set up ahead of time.
Okay. Love it. And also, if they, I guess, I don't know if this is a challenge at all. Did they change pathways at all? Or jump to something different once they get their experience into the programs, right? So I don't know if that is something you need to address. But this is, you know, I think the higher ed thing, and we hear this, by the way, I hear this is a common theme, doesn't matter what state I'm in, is the higher ed thing is a challenge, right? And maybe we should think about next year, and it's a question I do want this group to consider. Do we really try to get more higher ed involvement in these calls to where they are getting that stakeholder involvement, like I kind of own a piece of this, I should be part of these conversations. And we do this in other states, and that's a requirement. They absolutely are required to be, when we do this, higher ed has to come with them. They cannot do it without their partner on the phone because, so it is interesting to see. I'm going to share two quick things. I wanted to share this from the conversation last time. This was what I talked about, Gabby, in my dissertation. And you will notice number one was visit to the school. How do you make a decision? I wasn't even close, 6,000, right? And number two was talks to neighbor, all that social networking. And so that whole idea that we were talking about is how do we get to these people? It is really interesting. You don't even really get down to achievement and test scores and some of that data that you would think would drive the decision. It's really much more like, and I think this one thing, the one person said in my dissertation, you can't look online at our paper, but if you don't visit the school, you won't get a feel on how they're going to treat your child, right? And so anyway, I wanted to share that, just going back to what you said. And I think the early college has a unique opportunity to bring in that perspective, right? Again, this is definitely more. So it's 12:33 and I want to stay on schedule. So I know this is going to be, so here's what I'd like to do. Nobody's allowed to leave. You can take a 15-minute break, get coffee, but come back in 15 minutes. And what we're going to do is so to give you a peek, we're going to look at the academic pathways and we're going to look at the connection to a career. And we're going to do a problem of practice to where we try to weave together these two ideas, right? What did my academic pathways and my career connection start to look like, right? So let's take a 15-minute break. What time is it there? I always get my time zones confused. 10:35? Okay, so let's come back in exactly 15 minutes and we will go to the next two, okay? Hanging in with us today. I know it's the end of the year, but I think these are good conversations. One of the things we hope to do next year is to really build some really effective toolkits around all of these strategies, right? That physically give everybody the tools to do some of this work, right? I think everybody's back. Hannah, Tim, Maria, just give me a thumbs up or a quick shout in the chat. Let me know you guys are back. I see Hannah's turning on our camera. Welcome back, Hannah. You doing good today, Hannah?
Yeah.
You are our exemplar model, right? We need to figure out a way to do like an hour interview with you and record it. That may or may not be on my list, Hannah, just giving you a heads up.
Yeah, he's actually done this. He's not just saying it. There have been a number of us who've been on his podcast, so be ready.
Get ready, Hannah. You're going to be next. Okay, so we'll wait to hear from Veronica if we have a scholarship. And a good question, Dr. Hunter, and the answer is yes. It's a good question. So, okay, so here's what we're going to do next. Any update, Veronica?
I'm sorry, we're still in qualifying, so we're doing all right.
Just post a score. I know the highest score you can score in bowling is a 300, right?
It is a 300, and my son, the highest he's ever gotten, I want to say, is a 279 or something like that. So he's looking to beat that.
Okay. All right. Good luck. Post the number so we know what it is in the chat.
Oh, I will.
Okay. So what I want to do now is kind of take the same thread that we were talking about. And again, it's probably worth, based upon the conversation we had last time, to take that fifth principle of high quality partnership and really revisit it, right? Because we kind of left it out today. But understanding, again, all of these ideas, they're treated separately in understanding how an early college works. But the reality of it is this is like a tapestry. These are individual threads. You got to put them all together to create your strong cord, right? And so now we're going to look at academic pathways. I'll read this one to save my volunteers some time. Gabby's tired of volunteering. So I'll read this one. So academic pathways, early college, high school programs should be structured around clear and detailed academic pathways with regard to coursework sequencing and experiences beyond the classroom. I know this came up in group 2 last time. How do you make sure the rigor is still there in your coursework, right? Both high school and college. Understanding the economic environment of the geographic area in which an early college high school serves provides educators valuable information about what careers are high growth, high wage. And I would add high growth, high wage yield to high value, right? This allows educators to build career and college pathways and partnerships that reflect the realities of the workplace. So even in the academic definition, we're using words like career pathway, we're using words like community, right? So when we're doing this, and this came up, first conversation we had first thing this morning was somebody who said, Hannah, how do we get into that community? This is a reflection of your community too. What are the community's needs and how do we build that academic pathway? So again, we're stating it here. It goes on to say a next step plan, which I know you guys are familiar with. You guys are more familiar with that than I am. The next step plan is designed for each pathway. The offer demonstrates the 4-year crosswalk of how students will progress toward workforce recognized credentials, an associate degree, and/or transferable credits while completing college, high school requirements, right? So one of the things we've done in other states, and maybe we should do this here too, Kelly, is we created a transfer document that shows easy, like how everything transfers, right? And that might be something we want to share as to what that looks like, right? So that's the definition of the academic pathway as it's designed for an early college program, right? The crosswalk, recognized credentials. And we have people on the phone. Rob, Dr. Hunter, you're probably the one that you do liberal arts, right? Is your pathway? You have the liberal arts pathway. Gabby, you're focused on medical, if I remember correctly, is one of your primary pathways, right? And I'm trying to think, Richard, what is one of your primary pathways?
We have health services, manufacturing, and IT.
Okay. So again, a variety of pathways just on this phone call, right? On what people are focused on, right? So, and again, next we go to the connection to a career. Kelly, you want to volunteer to read this one?
Sure. Early college high school programs should expose students to a variety of career opportunities, including a greater understanding of careers relevant to their selected pathway. Opportunities should be provided for career awareness and exploration activities, targeted workforce and career skills development, career counseling, and elements of experiential and workplace learning.
Okay, so, and again, I think we're somewhat familiar with this. One of the things I'll share with you, in November of last year, the federal government put out a bid, and the bid was stated as following: could somebody come up with a new way to do effective career exploration? And it was a very interesting bid. We jumped on it and said, we'll take a stab at it. And they awarded one contract in the entire country, and we won it. But what's interesting about it is what we're developing has to be open source for every school district in America. So eventually, and hopefully this fall, I'll be able to share it with you guys, what we're building. But one of the key things we're thinking about in this connection to a career is how do we build a scripted curriculum, right? To where we look at grade level. By the way, it was supposed to be focused on grades 6 through 12. So what should we be doing at 6th grade to introduce students to careers, right? They should not be deciding their future, right? We should be exposing them to activities. And so I'll share more with that, but this speaks to what are we doing to provide those opportunities. And one way to think about it, and this is what we call an exemplary model and a spectrum of activity. So how do we create career awareness, Students learn about the world of work, including its broad range of industries and occupations. Lots of ways we can do that, right? We can do it through speakers, career days, fairs, career interest inventories, career research, company tours. Then career exploration. Students learn through activities and work experiences that help them explore careers. I'm not going to read all of these, but these could include job shadowing, job rotation, right? CTSO leadership programs, right? Contextual learning coursework, right? How do we embed careers in our coursework? Labor market information and evaluation. And then finally, career immersion activities, right? Students engage in immersion workforce experiences that prepare them for careers. Again, we talked about seminar classes, capstone. There was one early college program last year, pre-COVID, I can't remember which one. They have a service requirement along with their capstone project. And these are very valuable. I have to remind people all the time, brains are very malleable at this age. They are not totally, experiences allow them the opportunity to develop that, right? I had a student say once, and they were in a dental hygiene pathway, and they were graduating. And they said, I leaned over the student's shoulder and I said, are you excited about your career? And she said, God, no, I don't want to do this. And I said, you do know you're graduating with an industry certificate in dental hygienist. And she said, no, I just figured out I don't want to do this, right? And I actually thought it was a huge success. I thought it's better than going $20,000 in college debt. And they now had an experience that allowed them to figure out exactly what they wanted to do. So some of these are really, really important. And I think service projects, things like that, that really allow people to see the world differently. I think we really got to broaden this to include things like that. But these are some models to think through. I had one last example I'll give you. I had a superintendent come up to me and said, I need to apologize to you. And I said, why? And he said, I just realized I always thought my job was to get a kid to graduate high school. And that's it. And I said, whoa. What are they prepared for? Are we preparing them for college? Are we preparing them for careers? Are we immersing them in lots of experiences? Right? It's not one door called high school graduation. It should be 70 doors of experiences, right? And so, but this is a model to think about. So here's going to be our last activity of the day, I promise. Oops, I think Veronica's going to join us again. She must have got disconnected, or her son won. So we'll find out soon. So here's our activity. Kelly, will you read this while I admit Veronica to the room?
Sure. This is a make-believe school with a make-believe university, but you work at the Sid Gutierrez Early College High School in Central New Mexico. Your school is partnering with Central State University to develop an assigned pathway. You are in charge of planning the framework of activities for a specific pathway. Each breakout room will have a different pathway. By the way, Sid Gutierrez, if you don't know, was an astronaut from New Mexico.
So, fictitious school, should be a school if he was an astronaut. So here's what we want to do. And we, by the way, we just picked two pathways. We could have picked any pathway. We did pick the education pathway because I think it is high need. Your state is short of educators, right? And I've always wondered, like, maybe an early college program should create an education pathway, right? I don't think we have any of those that are out there. So I picked that as a pathway just to make people think a little bit. And the other one we picked was business management, just because there were lots of jobs that we knew we could point to. So what we want,
Dr. Rose, we did use that data dashboard and chose Central New Mexico and looked at high wage, high growth.
Correct. So we did use the data in New Mexico to say, let's use that. So here's what we're going to do. And this will be our last activity of the day. And then we'll wrap up with some follow-up items at the end. But what we want you to do is that if you open up your pathway, so group 1, you should know your group, click on your link, and it'll open up a document, right? And so all we've done is say, okay, here's an example of an education pathway. What are the relevant dual credit courses you've taken, right? And we made these up, by the way. So if you can think of better courses, feel free to think about that. But we put like in 10th grade, maybe there's a speech class you're taking, right? But then we want to think through what is the connection to career activities that support that you can discuss, right? So think about like looking at this both in what is the relevant coursework, but what are the career activities that we're intertwining with that pathway that support that, okay? So task 1, college coursework is suggested, but you can make adjustments. And then part 2, how would you go about connecting that coursework to career opportunities, okay? So look at your link by groups. And I think just because this is the last activity, I'll give you a few extra minutes because again, we're looking at the relevant academic coursework along with the career activities that support that work, the immersion activities, okay? Any quick questions before I open up the rooms? We good? Thumbs up? Everybody's still hanging. I know it's getting close to lunch, but we'll probably finish a few minutes early. But I'm going to open up the breakup rooms, and I think it's 5 after, so we'll go maybe just a little bit, maybe 22 after. I'll send you guys a note with 5 minutes to go, okay? Hey, I'm so happy. Everybody stayed. Nobody ran away.
Sorry, Brent.
Good. I went ahead and pulled up the first pathway. Did you guys stay on the pathway or did you switch once you got in your breakout? Gabby's kind of saying, yeah, we kind of switched. All right, we'll open it up to group 1, but tell me what you guys discussed and how it went. Somebody's laughing. I don't know who's laughing.
We did talk about how this is we don't have a lot of students on this pathway, so we had to focus in on that and just think in general terms. 9th grade, really focusing on what they can do here and really trying to expose them to, you know, again, within any field, but even in education, you know, students have this perception of what that is. Like education, that means teaching. And so really trying to have activities where they are able to really learn about what an education pathway means and that it's not just teachers. There's a lot of different jobs in the world of education. So really having students like the 9th grade year be with us and have those type of activities. We talked about in the later years, you know, exposure, I think, was brought up as the biggest thing, like getting exposure to the field, whatever it may be. In this case, like I said, education. We talked about there's a teacher cadet program where they actually go out and they work within, you know, the schools. We talked about having them involved in Educator Rising, which is the CTSO. And so for instance, I had reached out to the high school that's one of the high schools that's closest to us, because again, I don't have that CTSO. I don't have several students, but if we could partner with maybe a school that does have that, so our students still have that exposure. Things like working within the community that's close to you. So even like maybe in the 10th grade, I think at Alta Vista, you know, they had students that were organizing a science fair. So their kids were then teaching that content to, you know, the younger kids. and volunteering, you know, again, within the community, and where could we help find those places? And then, you know, just again, exposure and working, you know, I don't think I mentioned this, but we have a district program that we partner students with that places them in a job shadowing or a internship, or, you know, right now I have students on our campus working with our district technicians, and they're going around our campus and teaching them how to fix our computers, you know, the basic things that we need. And so things like that, and that's through our district program. So just finding those opportunities to expose students to that career.
Okay, that's great. I love the Educator Rising program. That's a really good program. I have a 20-year-old that's an education major, but he has been doing exposure work since he was 17. So he was teaching elementary kids, he was doing, and so it's interesting to see his progression because he's had so much exposure that the school has let him do. So love the ideas. Any other challenges anybody else want to share? I mean, obviously, when we create the pathways, we're just trying to create those opportunities for the students. I believe there is a double-digit shortage of teachers in New Mexico. So I picked the pathway just because it's a double-digit shortage right now, and I imagine it'll stay that way. But might be an opportunity for some early colleges if they're thinking about pathways to think about it, right? And there's other opportunities to expand. People don't realize just the world of curriculum, I think, is $80 billion a year. So as people are developing and teachers and teacher pathways, there's all kinds of opportunities. We, at my company, we've got, I don't know, 8 writers on staff that are educators that are helping us write lessons. And so there's opportunities even beyond that to think about the world of education, right? Like, what else can we do? What else can we expose them to? Okay, group 2 was my business group. This was a small group. Dr. Hunter, you were in there. Kelly, you were in there. Kobe, Brent, and Veronica, if she was there. Anybody want to share? Either Dr. Hunter or Kelly real quick. Kobe?
I could, but I've been doing a lot of talking. If anyone else wants to, please jump in.
Sure.
I would prefer to let one of the early college people speak versus me.
Okay, Kobe, it's down to you or Veronica. Somebody share. Doesn't matter. Dr. Hunter, jump in there.
Brent, why don't you do it? Your turn.
He's not there. He's probably.
He's also teaching a summer school course.
He's teaching right now, Kobe. So he's gone. I've got an empty screen.
I didn't take as good notes this time. Rob, just go ahead and let Rob do it. He has a better handle on it.
Rob, fire away, bud.
Well, lots of things that we talked about, and how the next step plan really informs the way that we sequence everything from 9th all the way through 12th, and how we use that as the backbone for a seminar class, which is focused on all the post-secondary pieces. So in 9th grade, you might be starting with a lot of career exploration and, you know, personality assessments and things like that. You know, 10th grade, you're fine tuning into majors, you know, and, you know, you get to a junior seminar and you are looking at particular colleges. That's the year when typically we'll go to a campus that the students help to identify through just answering a quick survey about the types of things they're looking for in a college, and then we identify what kind of college might fit that. We'll take them to that campus. By the time they're seniors, they're doing things like financial aid and actually applying to the schools. Now, I know that's a little bit off from what we were talking about with the career pathway, but it fits with the career pathway too, because what it does is it sort of leads the students into taking a close personal investigation of something they're interested in. And so then what we also do, and it fits into this next step plan in the seminar structure, is the actual work study class. Well, not really a class. What we do with the work study is it's when you're in your junior year primarily, or as a senior, you do 10 hours of job shadowing. I think I was calling it work study, but it's actually job shadow. And so you are spending some time with a professional in a field that hopefully through your seminar and next step plan, you've identified as an area of interest. And then what you're doing is you're getting kind of an off, hands-off look at what they do in that career, and you can spend some time interviewing the person who you're shadowing. But what's really kind of unique and cool about it is that we require the students who've completed the job shadow to present that job shadow to the underclassmen, like in the 9th grade especially. And so they're not, as the 9th graders progress in the school, they're not mystified by what does this look like, right? Because they've seen some upperclassmen present. And so they're actually doing a PowerPoint, they're talking to a live audience about what they went out and discovered, what they've learned. You don't want to do it way too late in their high school career either, because what if they decide that they don't want to do this particular thing that they thought they wanted to do, which they could only find out by going out and doing the shadowing. And so the final thing I would say about how that works too is it has been kind of funny to see some of the folks who have taken in the job shadow students contacting us and asking, when does the student graduate? Do they want to come work for us? So seeing that kind of thing happen too. We've had lawyers call us and say, hey, this person, they need to get into law school, but maybe they can paralegal for us, during the summers. We want to offer them a position. So we've had cool things happen.
That's awesome. Do you have, I love, and by the way, I think what you said, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th, the way you map that out, actually, I think it probably works with any pathway, right? What you're really doing is describing a framework, right? Like in 9th grade, we take interest. 10th grade, by 11th grade, we're doing a seminar, we're thinking about colleges and so on, but it should be building around that pathway with the job. Do you have this in a framework, like written up?
Yeah, it's in our next step plan. And then in addition, Mr. Knowles and I had sat down and we put together like a seminar calendar, and we said, look, each month of the academic year, where should we be moving with the 9th graders? Where should the 10th graders be going?
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it's just sort of a guide, and then of course the next step plan becomes the document that they can. It's expandable. It lives and breathes and follows them each grade. But yeah, so it can be applied. That's what's nice about it. It's flexible enough to apply to pretty much any pathway.
Okay, that's great. If you want to share that, I would love to see it, and we could share it out because, and I love the idea of upperclassmen talking back. I mean, again, you guys have heard this before. Kids remember 5% of what they told. They remember 90% when they have to teach it or they have to share it. Right. And so the whole idea of owning that is a pretty big idea, right? It's like, I'm going to own it because now I have to teach it back to somebody.
I'm going to ask Hannah to email that to you, Dr. Goins. And the reason being is because that's one of the first tasks that she did is when she came on board is she updated our next step plan. And so that it reflects the current names of things, like the assessments and so forth. Hannah, if you're cool with that, you should have Dr. Goins' email. I hope. If you don't, ask me for it. And if you could get him a copy of that next step plan, that'd be great.
Hannah, we'll post it in the chat. But it's a really good, I love that. And again, I think your framework really probably speaks to every pathway. And again, we were just picking the pathways to model the behavior, but I think your framework, Dr. Hunter, is good. Go ahead. Hey, Veronica. Is that Veronica coming back?
It is.
Okay. Anything else from the groups before we go on? It's we got 26 minutes up, but anything else from the group? Okay. So again, what we wanted to do is kind of dive in and unpack these 4 with problems of practice to get us thinking. Right? I always say that we learn best when we see models and examples from other people and we can figure out how to apply those to our circumstances, right? And how do we adapt that model? So Kelly, I think I might need to give you control. So when we think about looking forward to next year, obviously there's about 10 new principals I've got to go find who they are. And who are these people taking over all these new schools, right? And not new schools, but principals that have left to go on to do other things, right? Either retire or they've moved up. But Kelly, I'm going to turn it over to you. I think I need to let you share, and we're going to talk about one of the things. There you go, Kelly. Go ahead.
Okay. One of the things we're in the process of developing, it's not quite ready to go out yet, but it's really, it's this program assessment tool, but it's really a chance, an opportunity for you with others at your school to reflectively assess how your program's engaged in best practice, both in regards to the rubric and the design principles. And it's not complete, but once it is, we will get that out. I'm going to also share that with Veronica before it goes out. But we're currently working on, how do you use data? How do you prioritize? Are they prioritized? Do you feel like you're doing a good job there? Where are some areas you might tweak? But looking at things like that for you to basically do a self-assessment of your program.
And again, this is not a tool that, this isn't going to PED. This is a self-assessment tool to get your team as a leadership team to say, how are we doing in these areas, right? Do we have some blind spots, right? Are we looking at, Gabby, I think you mentioned at the very beginning of this today, do we look at the data enough early on? Or how do we get it? That might even be the first part, right? How do we get access to the data? Go ahead, Kelly. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Kelly.
Oh, that's fine. But once it's complete and we've got everything ready to go, we will send it out. If you remember last year in August, we did a very brief self-reflection type of survey. And this will be a little bit more detailed, but it'll be easier in the sense that it's going to be, for the most part, like a multiple choice where you're just assessing how you're doing. It's just more self-reflection for you, maybe to even set some goals for your program for the upcoming year. And Dr. Goins, I'll go back to you.
Okay, and so the other thing we're going to be doing, and I would love some opinion, some thoughts on this. So we want to do some professional learning communities, and you guys tell me, should we try to do one in July or should we just wait until school starts? I'm open either way. Right. One of the things I would like to do, if school is face-to-face, I would like to consider a September convening, and we can pick a location to do it at, but I would love to get back face-to-face and bring the team together. We will probably have 50% new principals at that point in time. So assuming we're face-to-face, I'm going to look at a 3/4 of a day convening somewhere, right? And I would be curious to know if that works with people calendar wise, and how do we create an agenda for the year, right? And so I would love some feedback on that. You guys can post it in the chat now. You can tell me now, or we can do it sometime, you guys get back in August and you tell me what you're thinking, right? But we, go ahead, Kelly.
Another thing we want to do too is to incorporate some professional learning groups that are also where you're presenting and sharing. We can talk about what the rubric says or what best practices are, but to hear how it's actually implemented in schools, to me, is the most valuable piece for anyone. How are people doing this?
That's correct. And so one of the things we'll do is we'll think through this, and I'll get an email, but first thing is we got to figure out all the new people, and then we'll come up with some professional learning communities that we can do starting maybe in late August, September. But we could do a convening in September. I'm going to wait and see what your state does as far as are we in person? Are we not? And what does that look like? Okay. So we'd love some feedback. Would anybody want to volunteer? We've been to Arrowhead, but we can go back to Arrowhead again. Gabby, you've got a great facility. Anybody else that wants to volunteer their facility? Dr. Hunter, you said you'd like to wait until you get your new one.
Kobe mentioned Taos Academy.
Yeah, Taos. We've never been to Taos. September might be the right time of the year to come if we don't want to have snow. Right, Kobe? But
Yeah, we could maybe do that. I can help. I can come back to work and help with that.
Okay, great, Kobe.
And UNM could help. UNM could help host it.
Okay, that might be an option for us. Okay, so I will make sure. But by the way, if you have new people on your list that you wanted us to put in the communication list, email us their names and contacts. We got to make sure we start gathering that information.
And Hannah, I'm going to make sure you're added to our mailing distribution list as well.
And lastly, real quick, Kelly, do you want to share the website redesign that we're thinking about doing?
One of the projects I'm going to do this summer, and I'll share my screen in just a moment, is really take a look at the ECHS New Mexico website. If you've been there lately, there's a lot of pages that appear dated. They're not aesthetically pleasing. In addition, I want to make sure that all of the information that's on it is accurate and up to date, which includes your school information. I know now if you were to go to that website and click on your school, you might find that things have changed a bit and need to be updated. And so I'm going to be working on that. But a couple of the things, and I can show you, and these are not final, but a couple of things that I'm looking at updating is I want to sort of give the site a newer look, if you will. This is pretty much the old look for most of the pages. This is one of the links under the About drop off, and it's facts. Well, there's no questions here. It's really not a facts page until you're getting further down in the list. So to show you one of the things that I'm looking at doing to make this page a bit better and more easily understood. And this is not final. This is just very much in draft stage. I will want my tech person to make sure we can manage it well. I want Joseph to look at it, Veronica. But can you see as it changes now?
Yes.
A bit more updated look with early college, high school, frequently asked questions with sort of a drop down look, whereas you can click on it and you can see now here's what an early college, high school is. What makes them, so I'm not having to read through a whole long page until I find the answer I want. I can quickly see, oh, I was curious about what are the benefits. And I'm working on doing some of that. What I would love for this page, if you have questions that come to you all the time, I'd love to include them on here and let's get some answers. And I know parents come to this page a lot, even though it's primarily a resource for you all. Parents come to it quite often. As a matter of fact, I got another email from a parent today wanting her child to come to early college, high school. And I sent her an email, and Gabby knows I've done this before. Ma'am, I need to know which early college, high school you're interested in, and I'll connect you with the correct person. But we are getting parents, so this shows up on searches. The other piece of this website redesign is what's helpful to you. What would you like to see included? What are some things that would make this page this website much more useful to you? So that's it for me.
Okay. And we will be, like Kelly said, we're going to be redesigning that. And there's a lot we've been doing on the front end of that too, just to make it more user-friendly. And Hannah, thank you very much. I did receive that. I will share that with the group as well. And but we're excited. I mean, I'm excited to get back in person so we can dive into this a little bit deeper. And Kobe, we will definitely be in touch If Taos would like to host it, we should go up to Taos and we'll figure out a way to make that happen. And I definitely want to get it. I know school is going to be busy, so I want to get it on everybody's calendar sooner than later, right? Because I know it gets hard to get on everybody's calendar. So as soon as we can figure that out, we will be in touch with everybody. But any final quick questions? I appreciate the time today. I know this was a long day, but I think it was very beneficial. We recorded it, but we have a lot of notes. We'll try to synthesize and get out to everybody. And I will be developing a professional learning community schedule for us and get it out as well.
As well as a schedule for check-in meetings.
Any questions, thoughts from the group before we exit? I know it's been a long day. Hannah, great to meet you. Hey, Veronica, do you want to share anything? Any updates before we go? Maybe they won. She's quiet. So she's signing paperwork. She's signing the paperwork on a scholarship right now for her kid, right? All right, everybody. Thank you very much. I appreciate the time today.
Will you be sharing the agenda?
I will. I'll share everything out with everybody today. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you, everyone. Be safe.
Everybody have a great summer. Okay. If I don't talk to you for a few weeks. Okay. Thank you.
See you all later.